All right, so in the chat box, what I would love for you guys to add in the chat box would be, what is one thing you have done to connect with your customers or your donors or your community, or maybe a group of friends or people that matter to you in growing your event planning or promotion work? In the last 6 months, what have you done? What's something creative you have done to connect with those people? And if you feel like you haven't done much, I'll challenge you, because you probably have done a couple of creative things. Sometimes we don't think of those things as being connection points, but does anyone have an answer for that? Nothing. Okay, Conrad, I'm going to come back to you because I know you have. Phone calls, emails, Zoom meeting. Yep. Anyone else? Sending helpful resources. Awesome. Okay. Yep. LinkedIn update. Awesome. All of the things you do every day potentially can be an energized connecting point. We've got emails, Facebook, LinkedIn, any kind of social media. All of us, I don't care what kind of events you've been planning, all of us have had to get creative this year, yeah? You can give me a wave or a thumbs up. We have to get creative. So I bet every one of you have found new ways that you have been able to start creating new types of connections and new connecting points with the people that you are trying to serve. When I talk about the people you're trying to serve, they are people that will help keep your business alive. They're going to buy your products. They might be donors that need to give, or you want them not only to give money, but to be engaged in the cause over time. Maybe they are, you're a coach or a speaker, and you connecting well with people that could put you on a stage. That's really important to you. All of these people matter. And the beauty when we start talking about connecting points or connections, we talk about ideas, we talk about projects, but we also talk mostly about people, because any project, any idea comes from the heart and the mind and the hands of the people around us. Yes, that's kind of, everyone knows that. Sometimes we need to be reminded of that. So when we're talking about connections today and how you are creating these creative, artistic, amazing, well-crafted connecting points for those people in your life, that's where we start to have some fun. And who needs some fun? We are almost, we're in Calgary here, we're almost through our lockdowns. We're almost seeing things reopen where we can start planning to gather again. All of that is beautiful, but I do believe we're not going back to the way that we connected before. Yeah? Some people are holding their breath. I've said this in some other sessions where I talk to some people, they're like, I'm just going to hold on just a little bit longer. But the reality is your clients, your customers, and your donors have already adopted new ways to connect. They already are in a space where they're saying, how else can we do this? So the exciting thing for you as someone that can orchestrate and connect better, you are in a position where you can actually now step up and say, I will be the artisan of connections. And the beauty of being an artist, I talk a little bit about that in the booklet that I will send you the link in the chat here in a minute. What I talk about is that I am an artist. That's just who I am. I grew up loving to craft, loving to draw, loving to paint. Almost anything I could get my hands into was a way for me to explore the world, explore what I thought, explore my expressions. But as we get older, in the work we do or the craft we do, we start to see other people are interested. We start to see that what we create actually has an impact. Yeah, that's when it gets really exciting, because then if we're putting something out in the world, it's not in a vacuum. And some people, I actually had a great conversation with a new friend down in Iowa yesterday. He is a business coach, but he applies his background as a creative to the work he does and to the coaching he does. And we had this beautiful conversation about what does it actually mean to apply creativity to our results, creativity to where we're trying to go. and allowing these creations that we put together not to mess up what we're trying to do, but enhance what we are trying to do. So I will challenge you, if you haven't added to the chat, if you feel like you haven't done anything creative to connect with those people that you are trying to serve, trying to sell a product to, donors you're trying to get on board, I would guess that you're probably doing that without even thinking about it. So allow yourself to go there today. For those of you that are just joining, I hit the record button after my introduction. So I will just let you know, my name is Lisa Garrow and I'm the founder of Candy Event Consulting. And everything I do is connection first. There is so many opportunities out there in the world for us to connect well. And if you have come to some of my purpose-driven workshops, I talk about connection points over time. They're kind of like a string of pearls where you'll have a pearl of purpose and you're connecting well, but then you want to have another one and another one and another one. And this goes over and over and over again through the life of your business or your organization. And you better believe every one of those connecting points builds on itself. So when we talk about today, we're going to talk about my 4 cornerstones to creating better connections. They're all built on this idea that everyone can be creative, everyone can unleash and awaken their inner artisan. So before we jump into those 4 points, I'm going to actually just drop into the chat. I'm going to drop into your link to today's booklet. Just give me 1 second here. All right. Okay, so this is going to be in Dropbox. If you have any challenges with getting it out of Dropbox, just let me know. But I will be able to walk through that with you after the session. Does everyone see it in the chat box there? There's just a link there for you. All right. Fantastic. So the first in your booklet, it says, why does it matter? I'll share my screen so you can all see it, even if you can't open it up yet. So right at the top here, I say, hey, Candy, why does it matter if I create better connections? Oh. This idea of your business, organization, or group, depending on the loyalty and engagement of your customers, clients, donors, volunteers, or members to thrive is so important. We can't do this alone. And I'm not just talking about partnerships. We've done some workshops where we're just talking about how do you create these activated partnerships, like-minded organizations, other business owners. Today, we're talking about your clients, your customers, your donors, the people that feed the work you do. Well-crafted connections are the only way to become sustainably significant to those you wish to serve. So when I'm talking about building this pearl necklace of purposeful connection over time, that's what we're talking about. This idea of becoming sustainably significant. I told you a little bit about my background, that I'm an artist. I love to paint. I love to actually illustrate children's books, was where I really found my feet as an artist. But this idea of creating sometimes made me feel like I was a fish out of water when it came to planning events. Anyone know why? You can throw it into the chat. If you are planning events, probably very familiar with structure, spreadsheets, maybe where you have parameters that you have to stay really tight within those parameters, deadlines. The amazing thing of this artist in me starting to embrace the planning side of what I enjoy to do, it actually puts structure to the art, structure to the connections. Has anyone felt like that, where you're actually, when you set a deadline on something, all of a sudden the fire's under your butt that now you have to make it happen? And when I started to see some of my creations, some events, some gatherings actually come to be, that's incredibly motivating. And not only motivating for you, but for the people that you are looking to serve. They start to look at you as somebody that can pull them together, that they can actually connect with you, connect better. So this idea of taking this new challenge, any kind of event planning challenge, through the eyes of an artist and the hands of an artisan, allowed me to express my true nature, my designing, my artistry, my creations that might even be happening sort of behind the scenes, to this idea where they're now opening up these connection points for my attendees, my clients at the same time. It's an incredibly dynamic and it's a very beautiful space for you to be sitting, because what starts to happen is you start to co-create experiences as well with those that are in your care or those that you are looking to connect with. So what we're going to learn today, we are going to dive right into, even though you might not think you're creative, we're going to dive into awakening your inner artisan and start creating meaningful connecting points for your community and clients, customers, members, donors. In our section here, so Angie's going to help me out today. She's going to throw some questions into the chat box. And for those of you that just joined us, I am going to do something a little bit, I don't want to say it's necessarily risky, because you chose this workshop. You chose here because you want to build better connections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one of these 4 points, but there's going to be a question that Angie's going to throw into the chat box. We'll answer, or I'll clarify that question here, but then we're going to put you into groups of 2 or 3 where you guys will have a chance for about 4 minutes, have a discussion. If you're at work and you can't talk, that's okay, just listen in. If you literally can't be in a group, then jump back into the main room. But we're going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes to have a discussion around each question. Everyone okay with that? We're good? There will be things you guys will come up with that I might have some thoughts on this, but I would love for you to jump into the group. We'll come back and we'll have that chance to discuss what you guys found out or what your opinions are on each one of these areas. I think that's really important. So to start us off, the 4 areas here are, the 4 areas, we're starting with our mindset. The second one is mastery. The next one is mentorship. And the next one is momentum. And so I did a video on this. I was trying to say it fast. I'm like, all of these are so important. And I hope that as we're presenting them, they will be something that will start to make more sense to you. And you can use these as a filter as you start creating these connecting points in your own business or in your own organization. So the first one is mindset. So the artisan, now this comes from, let me just sort of preface this. I did a ton of research, and some of you that love, like I do, personality tests, what color are you, what temperament are you, what archetype are you? There are a lot of them out there. I did a lot of study and work on really digging into what does an artisan actually mean? What does it mean to bring our creativity forward? And the artisan is a craftsperson. The artisan is someone that refines. They care very much about the work that they're doing. But in my research, I realized it wasn't just about an independent creation, and they're totally disconnected from the world. An artisan wants their work out there. They want to create a legacy with that work. So this is a really beautiful conversation. If you want to go off on a rabbit trail, Google has all sorts of great options. And if you want to talk about where some of these concepts were coming from, I can definitely show that to you. So this idea of mindset, the artisan is someone that values freedom and flexibility, and they are also patient, bold leaders. They apply their curious, sharp, creative minds to turning problems into possibilities. So the mindset, this idea of a connection first mindset, where yes, we want that freedom, we want the flexibility. If you are creating something, many times we have to get into the space that it's not a locked in solution. Again, this conversation I had with a new friend yesterday when we were talking about bringing creative suggestions and coaching into a corporate world. Sometimes there's a mindset shift that needs to happen where they start to see things a little more in a flex way, as opposed to a set, this is how we've always done it way. That can be a really tough mind shift for somebody that has been in a set way of doing things. They've got a system. Maybe they paid somebody a lot of money to create that system, or an expert. They don't want to mess with it because they're not sure what then do we create. Like there's really no set pathway. If we start setting our mind into this freedom, flexibility, some people call it failure. I struggle with that a little bit, because I think every act of creation is an iteration. And so this idea of patiently, boldly applying a curious and sharp mind to turn these problems into possibilities, that's when we can start to have some fun and see how we can connect in better ways. So Angie, if you could put the question into the chat box. We're going to ask you guys a question. I'm going to break you out into groups of 2 or 3. I would love you to discuss the question, even if you don't answer it and you're like, oh, we've got our final decision on what this question means and what we're wanting to talk about. Just have that conversation in whatever way it actually resonates with you. So the first question on mindset is, how could a creative mindset help you turn problems into possibilities? If you feel open, please share specific examples, maybe in your own work, on problems to possibilities. Any questions about that, feel free to unmute, and I can clarify that a little bit if you need that. We're all good? Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to now put you into rooms. I think we've got about 14 with us today. Okay. And if you're in a room of 3, we're going to give you just about 3 or 4 minutes. So just, Angie, you've got that in the chat box? Awesome, great, thank you. And we'll also add it into your breakout rooms as well. We'll see you in just about 3 minutes. Hello, hello, welcome back.
Hi.
Awesome. So we're getting everybody back. So that means that it wasn't too terrible in the room, I hope. Would anyone like to share what the answer to your question? How could a creative mindset help you turn problems into possibilities? Anyone want to share?
Well, at the risk of misrepresenting my partner, maybe I could just share this. I found it interesting that Donna, although she identified herself as being introverted, spoke rather easily to me. But the interesting thing is she recognized the importance of long-term relationship. That doesn't mean there are not short-term problems, which I think is how we're hitting on this topic right now. So the long-term needs to be claimed, even while creatively addressing some of the short-term problems. Did I say that right, Donna?
Absolutely right. Yes, yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Would you like to add to that, Zarina?
The only thing that I would like to add is the fact that we have to be adaptable and flexible to the new ways of connecting. There is no such thing as the old ways. We need to stop and look for better ways, not a new thing, but better. So having said that, everything that we're doing actually in connecting with others is to be who we really are, to show our true potentiality, to bring that out, even though it's hard for some. It's a long journey, but it's definitely worthwhile. The value that we each have to offer is tremendous, We just have to know how to. And that's where creativity comes in place. I think they're all connected.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Jacob as well. Any other comments, anything that came out of that quick discussion you just had? All right. Oh, Andrea,
Lisa, sorry, I was going to intervene and say,
please.
We had a little technical difficulty, so it's not like we got nothing to say. We didn't have time to chat.
Okay, no
But
problem.
the concept was great.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to have another chance here. You will be going into the same rooms again, so you'll get to connect with those people that you didn't get a chance to connect with, Andrea. Thank you for that. All right. So the idea of connection first, and thank you for those that spoke up. This idea of patient and bold. Sometimes that feels like an oxymoron because the idea of a long-term creative solution to a problem, and then we're tweaking and refining and we're allowing ourselves to create within that. There was actually a live I was watching with United Way yesterday, and the title of their live broadcast was Responsible Disruption. And I was intrigued because I'm like, is that not an oxymoron where, you know, yes, we want to be responsible, but what does disruption look like? It may not feel at the time responsible. It might not feel at the time that it's solving the big problem. But this idea of creativity disrupting and allowing something new to bubble up, that's where this gets to be really interesting, because we don't know what we don't know. And I have been planning and promoting events for 30 something years, 35 years. I know that if I get too locked in with a solution, things are pretty bumpy along the way. The more I can stay flexible, the more I can, Rivers on the call, welcome Rivers. Rivers says every day expect a curveball. Every day there should be something that's throwing you off a bit. Not completely off the tracks. We don't want anyone to, you know, close up shop or your nonprofit to not have that effect that they need to have in the community. It just means we need to be a little bit uncomfortable all the time. Yeah, hands up if you guys agree. It might take some practice. So let's jump to the second question. The second cornerstone that I've identified is this idea of mastery. I could do an entire workshop on mastery, but we're going to just touch on it today. So in the context of my world, the artisan skillfully utilizes tools to build ideas, teams, projects, and events that matter. They spot the problems in advance, and they act early, building solutions with a keen eye and a refining hand. So this idea of mastery is that we're not just creating to create, and I'm actually in a room, this is now my home office, but in a room where I closed the door when my daughter must have been about 10 or 11. This was her bedroom. I allowed her to paint the room bright pink, hot pink, neon pink. I gave her a brush and I closed the door. I said, do whatever you want. If you could see the baseboards and the door, you can imagine what ended up when I ended up opening that door. It was splatter paint everywhere. You know, we have spots on the ceiling. It was just, but she had the time of her life, I'm sure. But when I opened the door, there wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason for me. And this idea of creation, sometimes we feel like we are just gonna, the dam is gonna break, our team is gonna go nuts. We're gonna close the door as the leader or the event coordinator, whatever role you play. You're gonna open the door and now everything has to be fixed, repainted. You know, now I've got my nice tree in here and I've got nice paint in here. But this idea of creation, sometimes we feel like anything goes. In the context of planning and promoting your events, I say that we need that creation. We need space to grow and flexibility to try, and a community around us that can help us learn how to be creative. We also are shooting for excellence. So it's not just about always throwing something at the wall and seeing what's going to stick, throwing it at the wall and seeing if it'll stick. Part of this is allowing yourself to master your craft so that when you're failing, when you are thrown that curveball, you're actually learning to manage and manipulate the moment so that you actually come out the other side and create this beautiful work of art. Not everyone is going to understand your work of art. It's not about pleasing everybody and having something that's sort of now commercially, you know, something you could sell necessarily, but you're moving to this space where now it's taking form. It takes the right tools. It takes the time to learn the skills and allowing yourself to go there. So when we talk here about building ideas, teams, projects, and events that matter, I talk about legacy. I talk about what are we putting out there that actually has a life of its own. Why would we create something that we're holding so dear that when we are off this planet, it dies? I don't understand that mindset. And if we talk about some of the most amazing artists in the world, their art lives on, their music lives on. This idea of being an artisan or building, you know, I've just started something called the Connection Architect. When you think of some of the most amazing architects in the world, their work builds more work for others. They inspire others to create new things. That's what we're trying to do with this mastery, is we want to get really good at that creation, but then also the fulfillment of that. So the next question here, Angie, if you don't mind throwing that into the chat, how could mastery help you spot problems in advance and act early? So we're talking about mastering a skill or a tool. How could that help you spot the problems early? Spot the problems in advance and act early, where you're actually now, you're ready to go. What does that mean for you when you're creating? What does mastery mean to you? We're going to throw that into the chat box. I'm going to let you go for another 4 minutes-ish, 3 or 4 minutes. And then if you want to pop back, and then we'll just have another quick discussion. Hopefully those that had some technical difficulties won't. I think we're good now, but I'll throw you into the chat rooms and we'll see you in just a couple minutes. Welcome back, welcome back. I'm seeing some shaking of the head. Was that too fast? Rapid fire this morning. We're just getting going here. Awesome. Okay, so the question was, how could mastery help you spot problems in advance and act early? Anyone have any comments, thoughts? What came out of your groups?
I can share. I do believe that the main thing that we should even think about when we're talking about such topic would be to create the self-awareness. The more self-aware you are, the more you're in the now, you're able to actually spot any kind of issues with yourself or with others. And then from there, you can actually be proactive. Being proactive is something that we really need to grasp to a more deeper understanding. And it all starts with being self-aware.
Beautiful. Any comments on that or anything else that you've noticed in your room? Anna.
Yeah, I think what we talked about is the importance of valuing your work and identifying the value in what you do, and how, you know, if your business or your nonprofit or whatever wasn't there, how would the world be different? And with that is, first we brought up the word confidence, and then we thought a better word is conviction. Conviction in what you're doing.
Beautiful. Both of those, confidence and conviction. You will master what you need to, right? I grew up as a volunteer, and I put in many, many hours as a volunteer when I was younger. And some people will say you get what you paid for. But I tell you, you get a passionate person working on whatever you're trying to create, they will learn to master what they need to. Beautiful. Thank you, Anna. Any other comments?
Yeah, I had one, and we didn't talk about this, but it just came to my head as I'm going through the whole experience myself right now, is that mastery involves a lot of patience. And as a creative, as an entrepreneur, I have been known to chase squirrels my entire life, and has not made me a master in many different areas. And so I'm really embracing that journey of patience as I'm beginning to finally master my trade, which I'm focused on now as an entrepreneur. So I think patience is key to it also.
Beautiful. If somebody's trying to master playing the guitar, I am not a master. My husband's the master at playing guitar. If you're trying to master, even I was doing a cartoon for a magazine. This is just a few years ago. I had to master what it actually meant to tell a good joke. What does that even mean, right? Like, so that it has the impact you're trying to get across. I love that. And the patience. Sometimes we're really hard on ourselves, especially if we're creative, because we want to move on to the next thing. Is it just me, or do you guys feel like that? Like you're like, oh, I set that thing free. Awesome. Now I can start creating this new thing. Awesome. Now I can start creating this new thing. Amazing. The challenge with that is that we don't always see the results and the fruit of our labor. Because if we don't have the patience, this is gardening season here in Calgary. So if we don't have the patience to water and weed and take the time, understand what we're doing with that garden, we won't see the results. So thank you so much, Rivers. That's a fantastic reminder for us that sometimes we've got to sit with it, and mastery means we're at it, not just over and over again. Quick story before we move on to the next one. My daughter plays the flute. In high school, it would make her crazy because she said our band teacher tells everyone just to practice more. Practice more. She says what's happening is they're all just getting louder in their mistakes when we try to play, because he's not telling them how to refine. He's not giving them the tools to master that instrument. So when they all come together, he's making an assumption they know how to master it. We, as many times, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, or someone planning events for a nonprofit, whoever you are, whatever events you're planning, you will have the frustration sometimes of needing to be patient, refining, trying again, refining, trying again, nurturing, finding team members. It takes an enormous amount of patience to get ourselves to a goal. So thank you so much. I so appreciate that. And I am aware of the time here. So let's get on to mentorship. I joke sometimes that I have been forever a mentee wannabe. Someday I'm going to write the book. I have always wanted to have mentors in my life, and I have pursued people that I thought, oh, perfect mentor for me. And for some reason, they either disappoint me, or they're not the right person, or they move, or something happens. I still believe mentorship is key. I still believe this relationship with others is really important. And if some of you listen to Simon Sinek, he had a really great conversation where they were talking about the constellation theory. So this is about how we are all stars. We all have components and things about us that shine bright. And how do we come together with other stars and creating constellations? So when I think of the idea of mentorship, I have many people in my life I now recognize as mentors. The difference now is I'm starting to see that this is not just a one-way street. This is a conversation. This is a back and forth. We're learning from each other, which I think is the essence of a great mentor relationship. You're mentoring each other. I don't care how old you are, how many events you've planned. I have something to learn from everybody. Yeah, you guys have people in your life, you're like, man, I'm so glad I bumped into that person, or I'm so glad I had that conversation, because it's starting to refine and give me new tools. It's starting to allow me even patience. My goodness, I have had to learn from people that have incredible amounts of patience on how to wait, how to dig in deeper, that kind of thing. That's really important for us. So when I talk about mentorship in your booklet, I talk about mentorship for connectors. So if you are naturally a connector, a creative connector, you're planning events, You may feel like you are the one connecting everyone else, but you don't need it. You're the one pulling everyone together, gathering everyone together, but it's less sort of the shoemaker's kids. You're not as focused on how are you connecting and staying connected and being mentored through this. So this idea of, even though independent, the artisan is inspired and takes joy inspiring others. They express themselves readily and they work to gain momentum through authentic, active connections. Do you feel like, and maybe this question is redundant, but do you feel like you would be more creative if you were to have that kind of community around you? Probably. I'm seeing some nodding of the head. So this idea of independence, yes, at some points, and then where are we connecting with others so that we're starting to see the sparks happen? So your question on this one is, how could you move from independence to interdependence with what you're creating? We don't have to get too heady in this. I really want you to look at, how do you make this practical? And I keep talking to myself because I am a lone ranger in a lot of things, and I have had to learn to shift and say, I'm not giving up myself and my dreams and my plans. If I collaborate with somebody, I'm actually expanding the work. It truly is a shift that will create a mentorship type of engagement in your world that probably will look very different than how we typically think of mentorship. So I'm going to, last time I said I was going to throw you into the breakout rooms. I'm not going to throw you. I'm just going to place you nicely into your breakout rooms to have that conversation around the question of, how could you move from independence to interdependence in your work? So I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes. I will open the rooms now, and I will see you back in just a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back. Another rapid fire round. Awesome. Okay. Sorry for some of you. I think we lost a couple of people, so I just did a quick rejig here. So apologies if that messed up your conversation. Hopefully not. So how did you answer the question? How could you move from independence to interdependence in your work? Anyone have a comment on that?
Okay, I'll comment, Lisa. It's not what went on in our chat room, but I'm looking at you and thinking, you and I have a perfect example where I've been so totally independent for so many years, and it brought me and Lisa together, and we're realizing and recognizing the value in the interdependence of relationships in places where we don't know to look or haven't realized or looked out for.
Right, exactly. And if I could add to that, thank you so much, Andrea. I'm so glad that we're connected, more connected now than we have been in the past. The amazing thing when you start to see this interdependence happening, and this is sometimes the way I used to think, was that will take me so much more time. I can just move so much faster. I can get a lot done if I can just make decisions without necessarily bringing others into the mix. I guess now I'm over 50, whatever has happened, it's this feeling like in the last few years, I've really started to recognize that doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve the others in my community. The more that I am able to move away, keep my independence in a way that I am creating, I'm still sort of in my zone, but I am allowing, sort of opening the gate to others into what I'm doing, but I'm also entering into the gate of other people's work and their experiences and feeding into their success as well. So this really great interdependence is where we start to find new ways of doing things, different ways of doing things. And I think also, like I said earlier, we find the patience and the relationship that will keep us in the game long term. So thank you so much for that. In light of time, we're going to do the last one really fast. Are you ready? Okay, so the last one is about momentum. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but anyone that is creating, we talked about it a little earlier, if you're creating something, if you're creating a connecting point, I call a connecting point an event, a campaign, some kind of connection with your customers or your donors or even your internal team, where are you connecting with them over time? So where do we also then see momentum for these connecting points? So we don't want multiple one-hit wonders. I talk about that sometimes, this idea of an event being a one-hit wonder and then you'll never hear from it again. But where do we start creating a connecting point that builds on itself? It creates momentum and we can start to orchestrate this connection or more connections, better relationships, and I think more vibrant ways our community functions by allowing this momentum to happen. It's similar to when we were talking about mastery, but we have to be intentional about creating momentum through these connecting points. So what I say in your booklet is always looking on the bright side. The artisan lives and loves in the here and now. They also yearn to make an impact with their work, and they place a high value in remarkable results created over time. It may not happen right away, but we're looking at creating a body of work, many, many connections over time, where you start to really dig in and start to see that the momentum is growing. What happens when we get momentum? It becomes easier, right? It becomes probably more fun. I love kayaking. I tell you, when I get some momentum on the water, I'm able to enjoy the scenery. I'm able to talk to my husband. I'm able to start to see what else is going on, and I can feel my body in motion. And it's less effort when we start to see the momentum happening. We can create more. It's beautiful. So your last question of the session, I'm sorry, it's going to be like 2 minutes. I'll try to give you 3 minutes. So this idea of how could you create momentum with a connecting point over time? So just discuss, if you had, let's call it an event, if you had an event, how would you look at that event with the artisan eye and see where you could create some kind of momentum? So it's not just the one-hit wonder, so that it has a life. It starts to create a life of its own. Does that question make sense? Just think of one event. If there's someone in your group that wants to share an example, that's cool too. I'm gonna open up the rooms again. I'll give you about 2 or 3 minutes and then I'll call you back and then we'll wrap up for today. All right, welcome back. Are you all feeling a little like you had a workout?
Fast and furious.
Fast and furious, that's right. Okay, and I recognize we are just over time, so I don't want to take a ton of time, but if one of you had a comment on how you would create some momentum, any comments, anyone want to chime in one idea, and then we can share more on maybe our social channels today.
I'm going to communicate enthusiasm, because I think it's like a game of tennis. If you throw enthusiasm, you get it back.
Beautiful. That's awesome. And I know that when we are talking about creating momentum, there is effort that goes into that. But we must remember that we are playing a long game. The momentum is leading us to places that will create more impact, more money for our business, more connections that are going to matter. And at the end of the day, as we start to do this work well and refine this work, master this work, the tools that are needed, you will start to see results that you may not have seen in the past. And so I encourage you, even if you don't feel like you're creative, it's something that I said at the beginning, even if you don't feel like you're creative, you can wear your artisan hat, you can awaken your inner artisan, and you can step forward and really build these connections that will matter. So thank you, everybody. I don't want to keep you any longer. Thank you so much for joining me today and really participating in the groups today. We did this a little bit different, so thank you so much for playing along. Reach out to me if you'd like to connect with me. My email is lisa@CandyConsulting.ca. I'd love to hear from you, any feedback you have on the session, and watch our social channels. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up. And I will also send you in your email, follow-up email, the link to your booklet. But we will also be putting this on the YouTube channel. So for those of you that missed out and couldn't stay for the whole session, you'll be able to see the recording after as well. So thank you everybody for being here. Have an amazing day and happy connecting.
Lovely being here. Thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have an amazing day. We'll
Thanks,
see you
Lisa.
again. Thanks, Anna. Great to see you.